Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this.
Where we had the number 2 team in the country on the road in Assembly Hall. Purdue Boilermakers just destroyed Indiana, for lack of a better word. This was a non-competitive ball game pretty much throughout. Foul trouble early for the Hoosiers, but Zach Edey, 33 points, 14 rounds in 36 minutes. The best player in the country was the best player in the country tonight. Chris Mack, what did you see?
I mean, I saw the same thing, Greg. You know, I think that at halftime, kel'el Ware had 0 points, and Zach Edey had 18, and then he ends up, going for I think 33 or something to that effect. I mean, like when Braden Smith goes 2 of 14 on the evening, and they still win convincingly on the road. I think that's the biggest win that Purdue's ever had at Assembly Hall. It was good to see Purdue, if you're a Purdue fan, just play the way they did tonight and really be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. I was really impressed. I mean, Ware's got to show up against the National Player of the Year. He's got to show up. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. He's got to be a presence and to get outscored by 18 in the first half against big fella. That's not a good recipe. And I don't know what IU's doing with their point guard situation. You know, Xavier Johnson's a fifth-year kid. Whether he starts, whether he comes off the bench, they got to figure it out because right now it's sort of a train wreck at their point position. You know, Gabe is a young guy, and he'll get better, but not the position you want to be in right now, especially going into the season thinking he was your guy, Xavier Johnson.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway was that the backcourt for Indiana is just it's a mess. And I know Trey Galloway played pretty well today, and he's had a pretty good season overall. But Xavier Johnson's been I forget that he's even on the team. You know, there's times when he's playing, there's times when he's not. He comes in tonight, he had 19 points, 0 for 5 from the floor, 2 turnovers, no assists, no points. And it just, you need more out of him. You know, he was the guy that we thought was going to be one of the better point guards in the Big Ten last season. He came back this year to try to prove how good he can be and that he can be an NBA player and that he can have a chance at the next level. And I don't see it. You know, he's committing flagrant 2 fouls against Rutgers. He picked up another flagrant today. It just, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know what is going on with that backcourt and some of the decision-making overall. But I think the bottom line is that you need guard play to be able to win in college basketball, and they just don't have good enough guard play. And I think that's the bottom line when it comes to this Indiana team. Like, if you look at their bigs, you know, between kel'el Ware and Mackenzie and Bacot and Malik Renew and some of the guys they got coming off the bench, there are enough bodies there and enough talent there to be able to compete with pretty much anyone if you get some level of point guard play that's anything close to competent. And we haven't seen that from Indiana this season.
Yeah, I think it's why we called it out in the offseason, Rob, where it felt like at the time Mike Woodson was mortgaging the whole season on Xavier Johnson because he was going after all these front court players in the portal, and there wasn't really a lot of action trying to bring in additional guards. He ends up really needing 35 minutes a night from Xavier. Xavier has the injury concerns, and now I don't know if he's still battling through injury. If he is, obviously I feel for a guy in that situation, but this team just needs so much more than what he's giving them right now. Chris, I want to ask you this because Woodson was a little hot at the podium after this game, as, I mean, you should be, right? You lose a rivalry game at home in the fashion they did. That shouldn't be a surprise. But he had some very pointed comments for kel'el Ware in this one. He said, I didn't think Ware was tough enough. I think Ware could have done a better job battling him, but he didn't. It's something you got to learn from. This isn't the first time Woodson has kind of called out an individual player by name in a press conference after a performance like this. Do you think those comments are fair from Woodson?
Well, I certainly think they're fair. Whether they're going to help the situation, I think, is another thing. You know, only Coach Woodson knows his relationship with kel'el Ware. And it was sort of my point in the very beginning, Greg, when you got a guy that, you know, for all intents and purposes, they were talking about being a possible first-round pick. Like, you can't go and get a donut in the first half on your home court and think that it's going to be a competitive game. I know the point guard play isn't what it needs to be right now. But again, if you're talking about possibly being a first-round pick, you've got to do more, whether that's on the defensive end or the offensive end. But that to me was a complete no-show by Ware. Only Coach Woodson knows the type of relationship he has and whether the kick in the pants will solve the issue, but they need more out of him. And, I guess I go back to what Rob was talking about before about Xavier Johnson. I'm sure that he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. I think he thought going into his final year he was going to be auditioning for the next level. Thought maybe he had a chance to be on an NCAA tournament team and really be the guy and take a step up from his junior year to his senior year. And then he gets injured and he's out the whole month of December. And I think he's probably putting a lot of pressure on himself right now. And then not necessarily knowing is he coming off the bench? Is he starting? And again, like you talked about, Greg, is he battling the injury still? Because he doesn't look like he did a year ago. And, players generally get better, especially as they get older and they get more experience. He should be really confident. I'm sure that injury set him back, and he's probably more in between the ears right now than anything. But Indiana's got a lot to fix here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Rob, you've taken a lot of shots at the Big Ten Conference as a whole, and I have a very pointed question for you in response to this game. Does this result say more about Purdue, who is the best team in this conference, or does it say more about Indiana and where they're at as a program?
I think it says a lot about Indiana, but I do think that this is a statement performance by Purdue. There's what's the saying with rivalry games, right? You throw the records out, like anybody can beat anybody on a game like this, on a night like this. That Assembly Hall's going to be rocking. You have number 2 Purdue coming in. Indiana and Purdue were tied in the Big Ten standings at this point, right? They were both 4-2 coming in. So if they are going to have a chance to be able to make a run at the conference with Wisconsin losing, it's not out of the question for Indiana to win this game, a game out of first place in the Big Ten. It's not. They could have won the league. Like, they could have been a game out of first place. I'm not saying they could have won the league, but they could have been a game out of first place in the conference with a win here. And Purdue goes in and just completely embarrasses them. They're up 22 at the half. It's 51-29. It felt like this game was over 10 minutes in. I told Robbie Hummel that he probably could just go home at halftime. He doesn't need to be there. Just get an AI Robbie Hummel to call the rest of the game, and he's good to go. Get a move on, get back to Chicago a little bit more quickly. And the wildest part about it to me, guys, is that I think Braden Smith is like a top, like 6 to 8 point guard in college basketball this season, and he was bad tonight. He shot 2 for 14 from the floor. He was 0 for 6 from 3. I know he had 9 assists, and he kind of kept the offense moving, so it wasn't like a total train wreck, but he didn't play great. And generally speaking, when he doesn't play great, like the way that Nebraska beat Purdue last week was they completely took away Braden Smith and they completely took away Zach Edey, and they dared anybody else on the floor to beat him, right? And then we saw a night tonight where Braden Smith goes 2 for 14 from the floor, and Purdue's still up by 22 at halftime. Like, it's a statement to me from Purdue in terms of what they can be and how dangerous they are. I feel like there's only been one game this year, Greg, and correct me if I'm wrong, where Purdue has played a marquee opponent and they got a great game out of both Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith, and that was the 92-84 win over Arizona, what was basically like 1 versus 2 in college basketball at that point. And we talk a lot about how UConn still has room to grow with Steph Castle getting healthy and Donovan Clingan getting healthy, and them haven't played together really when they've both been fit. I do feel like there's room for Purdue to grow because we just don't see Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith play great games together at the same time. I don't know what's going on. Do they have like an NIL deal or something like that says they're not allowed to have great games in the same night?
I think they had to cut Lance Jones in. I think that's what happened, right?
Yeah,
they used to be able to combine for 100%. Now he's taking some of the shine. He was pretty good tonight for the record. But I was curious where you would go with that answer, though, Rob. And I think it is important to praise how far Purdue has come, because in the past, they don't survive a performance like that from Braden Smith. Now, the one thing I would add is I think it's easier to get to the finish line the way they did tonight, in the fashion they did tonight, when 3 of Indiana's starters are auto-benched with 2 fouls by the under 12. I mean, that just happened. And I don't like playing the officiating game. You can do this with every single Purdue game all season long. It's very difficult to officiate Zach Edey. But it is a thing. If you go through his career, in the games they've lost in the NCAA tournament, those games are called extremely differently than Big Ten basketball games are. It just is what it is, which is why I have a little bit of a hot take, gentlemen. And I'm about ready to submit my Vaulted prediction of the night. Vaulted is an app that allows you to participate in daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. It is the place for you to store your own predictions forever. And by using the Vaulted Challenge feature, you can prove that you are smarter than your friends like Chris Mack and Rob Dauster. Go download the Vaulted app. It's spelled VLTED to challenge your friends, store your predictions, join daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. My Vaulted Challenge for tonight, guys. I saw enough. I saw the demons in Braden Smith's eyes tonight, guys. 2 for 14 from the floor. This is now his third game against Indiana in his career in the rivalry where he hasn't hit double-figure scoring. Big games have been an issue for him in the past. Purdue's not going to the Final Four, gentlemen. That's my prediction. I don't see it. I see the ghosts, and I think they see the ghosts. And I hate that I had to be the Big Ten guy saying that about my Boilermakers. But it is what it is, gentlemen.
Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.